The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Okay, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. Today I have Mark Riddell with me, which is how his granny pronounces it. So that's what we're using today. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, Rebecca. How are you?
Stuff. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. We had a little technical hitch there, which was appropriate because you are the MD of M3 Networks. And I'm guessing you spend a lot of your time saying, have you switched it on and off again?
Yeah, it's the old cliche, but the funny thing is that it's the basic troubleshooting, right? Unless you've turned it off and on, there's no point trying to find the more complex solution. Quite often it's the simple things,
Why does that work?
Oh, how long have you got?
Okay.
Really, the way computers work, you load up a program, it stores that in memory or in the RAM. Most people will be familiar with these terms. And sometimes computers kind of just get themselves into a kind of funny turn, and they just need a reboot because it flushes out all of that stuff and it starts fresh.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a simple solution to a lot of things. It's like, I don't say it too much in business now because I'm not sitting on our help desk. We've got a team of people that are way better than me to do these things now. But I do find I'm saying that a lot to my kids at home when they come to me. Dad, my tablet's not working. Dad, YouTube's not working. I'm like, okay. And of course, if I just turn it off and on for them, they think I've worked some sort of voodoo magic and it works now. And then I get praise for it. So
and it's not true. You've literally just turned it off and on. Cool.
Yes.
Now, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you've been in computers a very long time.
Yes, quite a long time. Probably got into computers, I guess, the old school way, which was kind of, so my first computer was a Commodore 64. So if anyone remembers those, with the old tape drive and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I kind of got into that, started doing a little bit of coding, programming stuff, probably when I was about 10-year-old, I think, about that age. And then once I kind of got into like my mid-teens, that's kind of the era where more people were starting to have PCs in their house. And of course, it was like, the knock on the door at like 6:15 when you're still eating your dinner, and the next door neighbour's like, can Mark come and have a look at my computer? Because people kind of, of course, your parents always big you up, right? Oh yeah, Mark's great with computers. He can fix anything. So I'd be around there working for free, fixing people's computers in the evening. And then it kind of just went from there. That's kind of how it started. And then people started giving me money for doing it. They're like slipping me like £20 here and there because I'd fixed their computer. And that's kind of really where it started from. Kind of got into IT like that.
So you fell into it. And at the time, were they doing computer science at school or not?
No, well, there was computing at school when I was there. However, it wasn't really computing in terms of like technical support stuff. It was more about like how to use spreadsheets and write letters on a computer, I mean, when I started high school, I don't think the high school had any computers. I remember when they got their first Macs in the library and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't a huge thing back then, no.
All right. You can hear my dogs in the background. They're going to start fighting any minute now. Obviously, they've been really quiet for quite a while. And because I'm recording now, they're going to have a massive fight. But we're just going to have to go with it. You run a podcast.
Right. Yes.
What's your podcast about?
So the podcast is called Techcess, which was kind of my idea of taking the word technology and success and smashing them together, because that's really what, for me, technology is about. It's not just cool technology, which is quite nice. If you're into gadgets and stuff, technology for technology's sake is quite cool. But in business, technology is a tool, but it's a great enabler. It's probably one of the things that can really set your business apart from competitors, make you more efficient. So I like the fact that we can communicate, technology to business owners and IT decision makers so that they understand the technology they should have, like the essential technology, but what else is out there that can actually make your business a lot better.
You can't run. I mean, I often say to businesses, even the shop that's selling cupcakes is a tech business because it needs tech to run the business. A lot of our listeners are on their journey, running their own businesses. Some have started, some are towards the end of their journey. What do they need to keep their eye on? What's coming up over the horizon that can impact small to medium sized enterprises, either for good or bad?
Well, of course, cybersecurity is a huge issue for all businesses at the moment. In fact, it's actually becoming more of an issue for smaller businesses because everyone's aware of what's going on with like the big cyber stuff. You see like BA and Marriott hotels and everyone else in the news, right? But we don't really see small businesses making the news. The big companies have actually got much better at cybersecurity. They're all seen the other big companies, like, Uber, was a recent one as well. And they're all investing in it, and they're all becoming a lot more resilient to attacks, not paying out ransoms and things like that.
Okay.
So the attackers are like, right, these big companies are actually getting really switched on. Like, they are not really falling for this, and we're not really making the money there anymore. But the smaller companies don't have the budgets. They're not focused on cybersecurity because so many small businesses are still got that mindset of, well, it would never happened to me. No one's targeting me. Why would anyone be worried about little old me over here running my small business, right? So yeah, I mean, cybersecurity is a massive, massive problem. In fact, actually, I heard someone say earlier that people don't really look for IT support companies anymore. People are looking for cybersecurity specialists that can do the IT support too, which is really kind of turning it on its head. And so that's, I think, where we're kind of excelling in that area.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize any of that. So how can a small business protect themselves? What practical steps can they take?
The funny thing with cybersecurity is we talk about like cybersecurity culture. Like, if you're running a small business, if the owner MD of the business isn't really worried about, risks, or they're very risk averse, then that's going to filter down, right? Staff are going to follow the practices of the owner. So they see the owner, not being very cyber conscious, or if they hear the owner saying things, cyber is not a problem, it's never going to happen to us, and things like that. What's going to happen when your employees are sitting there looking at their email, trying to decide whether the email they're looking at is a real email or if it's a phishing attack? Their attitude to cybersecurity is going to mirror the owner.
Right.
But it really comes down to actually, one, acknowledging that, well, there's a risk, right? Cyber risk is just like any other business risk. Health and safety risks, fire risks, whatever other risks your business is facing. It's just a risk.
Right.
But I think it's just been seen as an IT thing, right? Cyber, it's just IT. And of course, we outsource our IT to an IT company. So then there's an assumption that the IT company is doing something, people don't know what that thing is. But yeah, they must be doing something with security, right? And I'm like, well, so really the question I ask a lot of people is, well, when did you last sit and have a discussion about cybersecurity with your IT company?
Okay.
Because if you're not talking to them about it, you really think they're just doing things in the background that you don't know about.
Right.
So yeah, it's a big problem, and it's one of the reasons I think why a lot of our new, customers come to us, because they find out at some point their IT company doesn't have cyber covered, and they want someone that has more of a specialist focused on cyber.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So at what point in your career did you go, I know I'm going to set up my own business? Because you're getting paid, by neighbours, by friends to fix computers and things like that. What was the catalyst that you thought, right, I'm going to turn this into a business?
So yeah, I've been in IT for a long time, but I didn't go straight into IT when I left school.
Okay.
I actually went into hospitality and I worked in hotels for a couple of years. I think that's where I learned like the customer service background side of things. But I always knew I was going to work in IT somehow. So after a couple of years, quit my job, went and studied my computer networking degree. That was 3 years. So then that took me to 2005 when I graduated. Next 2 years after that, I worked self-employed. So I was then taking what I was doing for the friends and family thing and actually making a go of it, kind of doing it my own thing.
Okay.
So, it's home PC repair stuff. After a couple of years, I started doing I used to do some web development stuff as well. And so I started doing that for a company based in Dundee. Eventually ended up working for them full time. And then that business went out of business, actually. And myself and my other two founders that set up M3, we were made redundant together. And so we didn't really have the luxury of going, right, we're going to start our own business and everything else. For us, starting a business was complete kind of like, the opposite way around than what most people would do it, right? It wasn't a conscious thing. We never knew it was going to happen until it happens. And some people don't, believe when I say that, I was made redundant on the 17th of August in 2009. M3, if you look us up, our date of incorporation was the 18th of August.
Yeah.
Like the next day.
Yeah.
And it literally happened that quickly. We sat round my colleague Mary's kitchen table, decided what we're going to call ourselves, filled out the forms, had a few more beers, and then that was it. Company was born the next day. And the photo actually, which I just actually changed on our kind of our story or our About Us page on our website, it's a photo there of me with my daughter, who was 6 months old at the time, sitting at Mary's kitchen table in front of my laptop. And that was literally the start of the business. Of course, she was sitting there, bashing away on the keyboard and everything else, not realizing that, daddy's freaking out how he's going to pay the bills this month because he's just lost his job. And that's literally how it happened. So we had some customers that we thankfully were able to kind of kickstart the business with. So myself and my other colleague, Mark Lamb, we had customers contacting us saying what's happened, because the business that we worked for literally got shut down overnight.
Wow.
And we were like, well, explain to them what happened. And pretty much a good majority of them agreed to come on board with us from the start of the following month. And delighted that a lot of those customers are still with us. In fact, if not, I think all of them that we started with.
Now I know where the M3 came from.
And that's where the M3 came from. Yeah, absolutely. Three M's. Of course, we went through a million other names, as you do, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what if we take the word computer and translate it into Latin? It's like, what does that sound like? I think is what a lot of people do. Let's translate it into a foreign language. It's like, well, why? And I was like, well, M3 is us, and networks is really kind of what we do. And in the logo, which you see in the background, the idea was that M to the power of 3, it's the power of the three of us together doing this thing, and that's kind of where it all came from. And that logo hasn't changed actually in 13 years. That's our original logo.
Cool. So your daughter's 13 or nearly 14, is she?
Yeah, she'll be 14 in February. So yeah, she's almost as old as she's older than the business actually. Yeah. I'm not sure which one causes me more headaches, whether the teenager or the business, but
my money's on the teenager.
Yeah. I think I find it easier to fix business problems than I do to find teenage daughter problems.
Yeah. I have a 13-year-old daughter as well. She's 14 in December, so very similar ages, and they're tricky age and stage.
Very tricky.
Yeah.
Very tricky.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So my dogs are now whining, which is really helpful. And I'm hoping my snazzy microphone's not picking that up. But anyway, we'll plow on through.
The magic of editing, don't you?
I know. We'll get Neil to edit that bit out. So are the three of you still in business together?
Yeah. The three of us still in business together. So my colleague Mary's our FD.
Right.
Mark's our technical director, and I'm managing director, although my kind of day-to-day remit is sales and marketing.
Okay.
I think I was, out of the three of us, I was the one that's most comfortable kind of being out there and speaking to people and like being the face of the business and doing all the business networking stuff. So it kind of fell to me to, I guess, from the hospitality background, right? Just like when I worked front desk in a busy hotel, you kind of have to be a kind of a people person and be able to kind of be out there in front of the public. So so yeah, it's just always kind of fallen to me to kind of be that. So kind of, yeah, I enjoy it. Enjoy being out there and meeting new businesses as well.
Well, that's good. Well, that's how we met. We were on one of Dave's walks, weren't we? And
Yes.
that's how we met. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And looking at your previous podcast, the amount of people that we've got in common as well, that have been previous guests as well, is quite a few people. I made a list earlier of the people that you've got on the show. Quite a few other people I've met, and actually, I think at least one customer of ours.
Good.
Trisha Fox, who I think you've had on more than once,
twice. Yeah.
Yes, so Trisha's a customer of ours. There's a few other people there that I know quite well. So I don't think I've seen a podcast where I've gone through the guest list and went, I actually personally know a lot of these people.
It's because Scotland's a village. That's why, although I do go off piste and go, I've had some American guests and some guests from England. I've had Owen, who is Irish, but he's based in Scotland. So yeah, I've had a guy from Mexico as well on the podcast.
Nice.
So yeah, all kinds of people. So yeah, I had to have Trisha on twice because she just keeps starting new businesses. So, when she started the coffee business, I had to get her on to talk about that. But that's good. The businesses that you work with, do they tend to be SMEs or do you work with corporates as well?
It varies a lot. People always say, you should focus on certain kind of sectors and things like that. What I would say is two things that most of our customers have in common is they operate from multiple sites. So businesses from multi-location businesses are good because their IT needs tend to be quite complex on the networking side. So that's where we tend to excel in the more complex environments.
Okay.
And the second thing is that while they're not all manufacturing businesses, they're a similar setup to a manufacturing business. What I mean by that is that they operate from a big industrial type building where there's an office back end, and then either a manufacturing or some sort of business that, for example, accident repair centres. So vehicle accident repair centres, we've got quite a few customers. It's a bit of a specialist area for us. They're not obviously manufacturing anything, but the same type of environment. We're in that industrial type setting where there's a back office function, and then there's like a warehouse shop floor where they've got guys repairing cars and repainting cars and things like that. And they also tend to be multi-site businesses.
Right.
So yeah, those are things that are quite kind of commonalities. In terms of size, it varies quite a lot. Typically, we work with businesses that have 10 computers upwards, which is where we tend to be able to add most value to people, and anything up to 100 plus. Typically, once you get to that size, people will either have maybe an in-house IT resource, so they might not be outsourcing so much of it. But yeah, typically that 10 to 100 computers, across multiple sites is kind of a common theme across a lot of our customers.
And where are you taking the business?
Well, over the last 2 years, actually, we opened an office down in Birmingham during COVID.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then more recently, the start of this year, we opened in Edinburgh too. Although we're based in Perth and Edinburgh is fairly close.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for opening in Edinburgh was actually for recruitment, because recruitment's been a real struggle. I mean, if anyone else listening to this knows Perth isn't known as a tech hub, so there's not a pool of IT talent around here. So yeah, I mean, opening in Edinburgh really helped with that, because we quite quickly recruited a couple of new techs that we were struggling to recruit. So where we're going is So Glasgow, our plans are to open in Glasgow as well. So we
Okay.
can kind of complete that magic triangle of Perth,
Yeah.
Edinburgh, Glasgow.
Yeah.
And we've got customers kind of all over the UK. People often ask that, oh, so most of your customers are around Perth. And well, we've got customers down in Hastings
Mm.
and we've got all the way up to Dingwall. So
Right.
it's a pretty big, coverage area that we have. So yeah, but I mean, we've been growing organically through our own kind of outreach and kind of growing. We've always aimed for 1 or 2 new customers a month, and we pretty much hit that nowadays. Going forward, bigger picture things, acquisition of other IT companies is probably kind of where we're moving towards. Just because, of course, once you grow, when you're small, you add on some new customers, and it's quite big growth. But of course, as you get bigger, it becomes harder and harder to keep pushing the stone up the hill, right?
Yeah.
And the other IT companies that are bigger than us out there, and I know quite a few over in the States.
Right.
There's a common theme again where you can get to a certain level, and after that level, it becomes so hard to keep growing that
Yeah.
acquisition is really the only real option that you end up being left with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's on the horizon. Not right yet, but it's something that we're talking about.
It makes sense, and it's either you go out and acquire or you get acquired. Really,
Yeah.
and that's you're right. You get to a certain stage in a service sector company, and that's really how things begin to happen. Definitely. In terms of your own ambitions, what if you have, I don't know whether you do, if you have a big vision for M3, what's the big, scary, audacious goal for the business?
Oh, that's tough. When people ask me that, I say to you, I just want to go and ride my bike. I just want to, I sort of spend most time cycling as I can because that's my thing these days. But no, for the business is interesting actually. There's a guy in the States, and I was on a webinar with him just a few weeks back, and similar scenario to us, got to a certain size, started acquiring. His goal was he wanted to have a $50 million revenue by the time he was 50.
Okay.
Now, you could say that's just, of course, it's just made up. But 50 by 50 just had a nice ring to it, and that's what he went for. It's difficult for me. I've not seen things like that. I've struggled a little bit, actually, over the last few years, because for me, my biggest goal was always to buy a house.
Okay.
And I turned 40 this year, a few months back, and I thought if I could buy a house before I was 40, it would be great. Never owned a house before.
Right.
And my mum and dad never owned a house either. So I don't come from a history of house owners. This is a big thing for me. It's a really big thing.
Yeah.
And so we actually bought our first house during lockdown number 1.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Which was a bit stressful because we were supposed to move in on the Friday, and Boris Johnson announced first lockdown, I think, on the Monday of that week.
Yeah.
So our house was in cardboard box city, packed, everything. And then the solicitor's like, no, we've been told by the Law Society we can't complete any house moves.
Oh, no.
And of course, panic set in of going, well, does that mean it's all going to fall apart? What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? Of course. So we had a 6-week delay. But those 6 weeks were extremely stressful. Yeah. And people that know me know I like my whiskey, and I really liked my whiskey during those 6 weeks. Let me tell you.
Oh my God!
So yeah, it was extremely stressful. But hey, it all happened, and it was the not knowing. If someone had said, "Look, Mark, it's going to be 6 weeks, and then it will happen," I'd be like, "Fine, if I know." Yeah. But it was the unknown of going, when is it going to happen, and is it going to happen, and what if the mortgage lender withdraw the mortgage offer because of COVID and everything? It's like there's so many things were going around my head, and I was thinking, typical me, that I would do all this work over the years to get us to the point of buying this house, and for it all just to be like pulled away from you at the last minute because of COVID. It was like. It was pretty stressful.
It is, yeah. I don't envy you that at all. I take it you're happy and settled into that house.
Happy and settled, yeah. It's mad. It's been
Phew.
2.5 years already
Yeah.
in the house, and I've actually renewed the mortgage as well since then.
Yeah.
So that's how long ago it was. It doesn't feel like it.
Hope you got a good fixed deal.
Yes, I did.
Good.
Thankfully,
Phew.
yes. So hopefully all this nonsense will kind of calm down by the time that comes round again.
I'm going to come back to your vision of cycling more, because often the first person's response is the first response person makes is the most honest response. And I don't think there's anything wrong in going, do you know, I'm building a business so that I can spend more time doing the stuff like cycling. And there's, the path that you're on of acquisition or whatever that happens to be, as long as you get the cultures right and you buy the right business that complements your culture, there's no reason why that, in the early days, obviously it'd be very time consuming, but eventually there's no reason why you can't then step back and have a full-time MD, paid MD, that isn't you.
Yeah, you're right. I think the cycling thing, I mean, when you say that, can obviously sound a little bit selfish, because I've not said anything about the family or about the business. But I think when people are asked those questions, they kind of default to talking about like the business goals and like the business that want for that. I mean, financially, it's not, of course, there's always everyone wants to earn more money and work less. I think if those two things are always sound quite nice, but for me, it's about, being able to have not to have any money worries or concerns or things like that. But the cycling thing ties into a potential, it'd be quite nice to, I've already floated this by my better half, actually. I've said, see, one day when we retire, really nice to retire to somewhere maybe like Spain. Near maybe like some of the nice mountain cycle routes and stuff, so that, because I live in Scotland, right? So we literally get 3 or 4 months of the year where cycling's fantastic, and then the rest of it's terrible. So I'm stuck inside in the turbo trainer. But it'd be nice if every day you woke up was perfect cycling day, So that's it probably ties into something like that, where I'd quite happy go and retire in a slightly warmer climate. But then that ties back into business goals, right? Because the business has got to do its thing in order for you to have that, right?
Completely. And whenever I work with clients, my first question to them is, what do you want? What do you actually want for your life, your family, your friends, whatever that happens to be? Because the business is merely a vehicle. Your vehicle happens to be M3 Networks to get you personally and your fellow directors to where you want to be. It could be any vehicle. It could be a career. It could be a profession. But it's a vehicle. And if you enjoy it, brilliant, which you seem to do. That's fantastic. And enjoy yourself while you're driving the vehicle. But it has to deliver what you want as a human being. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. I think a lot of business owners actually struggle to say what they want personally, because I think they feel like, well, it should always be about like the business. I was like, but you and the business aren't the same thing, and the business is there to serve your life. Let's be honest, and that's what it's about, because otherwise you've pretty much just created yourself a job for life.
Yes.
Yeah. You've just employed yourself and you're going to do the same thing for the rest of your life, And the thing about it is, if you do that, then all the people that you hire, like all your staff, they're going to retire one day and leave the company and enjoy retirement. And you're still going to be stuck there trying to drive the business, right? When everyone else is off enjoying, retirement in Spain or whatever, and you're still stuck there. So the one thing that the guy was on the the webinar a few weeks back there, one thing that that he said was that you should always be creating your business to be sold. Even if you've got no intentions of selling it, you should always be building a business to be sold, because then, he says, it structures you to build a business that is attractive to other people. So that if one day you do decide to sell it, then it's already in a position. What he means is that systems and processes and a proper management team in place, so that it's attractive to somebody else, not just you. take you out of it. So
it wasn't
really interesting when you start looking at things, especially for people that have kind of, because he's a few laps ahead of us, right? He's, I think his company's doing like £12 million or $12 million now. But he was where we were at before he started acquiring.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just he's a bit further down the line. So I'm just going to learn from all his mistakes and
I mean, he's clearly read the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, because that's the principle obviously in there. And he's absolutely right. You build a business so it doesn't need you anymore. And you build a business. So a couple of our previous podcast guests have built and exited businesses, and that's their key advice is before you exit, the year before or 2 years before, go part-time. One lady went down to, I think it was 2 days a week, and another chap who'd sold his business, I think he took 2 months off on holiday, and when he came back, his business was thriving, and so he could prove to people, it doesn't need me, it doesn't rely on me. And that's absolutely the key to growing a really successful business. Definitely. Yeah. So how are you making yourself redundant, Mark?
Well, see, the funny thing is, I was going to say there, you picked up on like E-Myth. So, and you don't know this actually, but we actually work with E-Myth.
Oh, no way.
So we actually have an E-Myth coach, and we have had for a few years, which is probably coming across, right? You obviously recognize some of the things I've said as very like E-Myth kind of like. So, very interesting. And then, like you said, making yourself redundant. And I think this was a pre-E-Myth thing. I think can't remember where I read it, but make yourself redundant every 12 months.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've managed to do that on the technical side. So like I'm not involved in the technical side because I've always done all the sales and marketing stuff way back when we were much smaller. When I was out doing project work and things like that, of course, there was no sales and marketing happening. Probably like a lot of small businesses, where the owner, one of the owners and directors of the company is always having to do sales. But then when you get busy, the sales and marketing stuff stops and you come out the other side of it and go, right, we've done all that stuff. What now? Been very fortunate to have a financial director from day one, and Mary. So Mark and myself, when we were just the two techies in the beginning, we've been able to go and do our thing and not have to get worried about the financial side of stuff. So we've got someone to kind of look after that, and someone to keep us in check as well. Who's not a techie, who's not getting carried away by, oh, look at this nice bit of technology or whatever it is.
Shiny thing over here. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I definitely have shiny object syndrome.
Do you?
100%.
It's fatal. It really is fatal. All right. So we are coming to the end of our time, but I have one final question, which is, if your business had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question. If I had a personality or a character, I think because of what we do, I would say that our business would be kind of our account manager, James, always says that our technicians are like IT rock stars.
Okay.
And I think I'm quite into like classic rock stuff. So imagine like a rock band where like each person is an absolute expert in their own instrument, right? And it's like our team, we've got people that are very, very good at hardware and infrastructure stuff. We've got people that are very, very good with like servers, and people very good with Office 365 and everything else. So we've got this team of people that are all very good at their own instruments, if you like. So yeah, I would say some sort of like glam rock, kind of like 70s, kind of like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin type of thing. Plus, not only are we just experts in what we do, we think we like have a bit of fun about it as well.
Good.
So yeah, it was either going to be that, or I was going to pick like a superhero with a cape or something. But I think that's no.
No, I now have an image of you all Kiss, the rock band Kiss, where they have all the makeup and that's. I'm now whenever I see you on one of those walks, Mark, I'm just going to imagine you as one of the members of Kiss.
Well, actually, Kiss. So my son's 10, right, and
Right.
he loves Kiss. That's his favorite band. I don't know
cool.
how. I don't know if it's because of the costumes and the way they're dressed up
Right.
and stuff, but he loves Kiss. So yeah. Well, there we go. Well, let's pick Kiss then, and it's nothing
Brilliant.
to do. None of us dress up in makeup on a Friday night or anything like that. Well, maybe some of them do. I don't know.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Maybe they do. But maybe that should be our next company photo shoot. We all dress up as rock stars or something like that. That'd be quite
I
fun.
really want to see that photo shoot.
I don't.
I do. That's brilliant. That's an amazing place. And thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your time on this. And I have learnt some things about you that I did not know. So thank you.
You're welcome.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture